the Tuesday, October 1st, 2024 Garrison Board of Education regular workshop meeting. Deputy Caldwell, please.
Jocelyn Alpacello.
Here.
Eric Arnold.
Here.
Jennifer Harrison Wilson.
Here.
Dan Jasnow.
Here.
Peter Lesser.
Here.
Ken Schott.
Here.
Sarah Tong.
Here. Pledge allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next up, I have accept agenda changes. Do I have any recommended changes this evening? Okay. Be it resolved, the Board of Education of the Garrison Union Preschool District hereby accepts the agenda as presented. May I have a motion, please?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Nays, abstentions. Okay, brings us to our superintendent's report.
Thank you, Sarah. Members of the board, community members. My remarks tonight will be brief. So they say good things come to those who wait. And we did wait for longer than we expected for our new gym floor, but I am happy to report that it looks fantastic, and we were on it on Monday. And this is some kindergarten students on our new center getting ready for a game. So it looks great. Thank you again to the community for your patience, also for supporting it in our operating budget. We're going to enjoy this very much so in the coming months. We also have our high school visits. I just want to make an announcement. I know we had an 8th grade evening with our parents at the end of our middle school back to school night. And just so everybody knows, our student tours for Howland are on November 6th at 9 a.m. There's a parent presentation on November 6th at 6 p.m. For Putnam Valley, the student tours are November 13th at 9:30 a.m. The parent presentation is November 18th at 6 p.m. And for O'Neill High School, the student tours are November 21st at 9:30 a.m. And the parent presentation is on November 19th, 6:30 p.m. And if families have any questions about it, Krista DiDiego is the person that they call. This has already been sent to parents, but I wanted to make a public announcement on it. We're really excited about these visits that are coming up in the month of November. We had an incredibly successful back to school night for our middle school last week and for our elementary school. I want to thank our teachers who did a remarkable job creating a presentation in an environment that was very welcoming for our parents. Our custodians did a remarkable job turning around at the end of a busy school day and getting spaces and places really comfortable for parents to visit. And we had an incredible turnout for middle school and our elementary. It was standing room only in here for our elementary. And we want to thank parents and guardians for coming and listening to their child's teachers about the wonderful experiences they're going to have this year. Couple reminders, just because we're not going to have another board meeting until some of these events pass. Schools are closed on October 3rd for Rosh Hashanah, so those who are celebrating, happy Rosh Hashanah and Happy New Year to you. But we are open on October 4th, so I don't want people to get that confused as well. On October 9th, we'll have our Putnam County Flu Clinic. So Nurse Melissa should have sent information home for those that want to participate in it. So it's a free flu vaccine put on by the Putnam County Department of Health. On October 11th, and information will go out this week in our weekly update, and I will send out a reminder in Parent Square. Countywide, we have an emergency early dismissal drill on October 11th. That means we will be dismissing about 15 minutes early. So please make the modifications you need to your day to pick up your kids 15 minutes early, or be at the bus stop 15 minutes earlier at dismissal, so our students aren't sitting there alone and we have to bring them back to the building. Lastly, schools are closed on October 14th for Columbus and Indigenous Peoples Day. So I just wanted to give the community a reminder about these things. They'll be in our weekly newsletters, and many of these things are also on our district calendar. That is all for my superintendent's report this evening. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to entertain them.
Thank you so much, Greg. It's great. Now we get to my favorite presentations of the year. This is the audit that was done over the summer. It was presented to the audit committee about 2 weeks ago. The committee had a chance to ask questions, things like that. And now we are going to get a lovely overview tonight from our friends at O'Connor Davies. So I'm going to turn the microphone over to you. Thanks so much for coming out.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Scott Oling. I'm a partner with PKF O'Connor Davies. I'm actually pinch hitting for my partner who is in charge of this audit, Alan Cassay, who is away this week. And I'm joined tonight by Claudia Leal, who is the manager who ran the audit, this summer for the school district. So I'm going to let Claudia take about 75% of the presentation, and I'll take the remainder. So what we're going to discuss tonight is just some required communications that we are, as auditors, required to provide to you. And then most of the focus will be on the results, the financial results for the year ended June 30, 24. So we'll go over revenues and expenditures, and then we'll take a look at some of your major revenues. We'll give you a multi-year view of those revenues and expenditures. And then really, I think the most important thing is the fund balance portion, where you ended up for the year. And then we'll conclude with the discussion of some debt service. So with that, I will turn it over to Claudia.
So just a couple of required communications. So just to go over the responsibilities of management and those charged with governance, which is the board. You must select and implement the appropriate accounting policies, fairly present the financial statements in accordance with US GAAP, establish and maintain effective internal controls over financial reporting, maintain compliance with laws, regulations, and provisions of any contracts or agreements, provide all financial records and related information to us as the auditors, and setting the proper tone at the top. And then our responsibility, just to go over the audit timeline, we came in at the end of June to do our preliminary field work, which we test the internal controls. We did our year-end audit testing from July 15th to July 19th, and then we completed the audit in September. I know Alan did an audit committee meeting a few weeks ago, and then we're here presenting to the board. And then our deliverables, we have our independent auditors report, which provides our opinion. We issued an unmodified opinion, which is the cleanest opinion you can get. We have our yellow book report, which is our reports on controls and any compliance. Our extra classroom activities report, which shows the current year activity for all those clubs for the students. We have our required communications to those charged with governance and our management letter as well. And then our responsibility is to communicate any fraud or illegal acts that are noted during the audit. We didn't identify any. We encountered no significant difficulties in conducting our audit, no uncorrected misstatements, no disagreements with management, and then once again, we issued a clean, unmodified opinion. And then we'll go over the summary of the revenues and expenditures for your general fund. So as you can see, we'll go through the first column, the original budget. We budgeted revenues of 1.8 million, expenditures of 12.5 million. Other financing sources and uses, those are the transfers to other funds. And then 55,000 includes 45,000 transfer to the capital projects fund, which was voter approved, resulting in the fund balance for the budget of 685,000. And that's what you use to balance your budget using your own fund balance. In order to get your balance to budget. And then we'll look at your actual column. So you actually exceeded your budget for the revenues by 1.6 million, coming in at 13.5 million. And you had savings in your expenditures of 890,000, coming in at 11.6 million. Once again, you'll see your transfers, it was $50,000. Once again, that included your 45,000 in capital projects. And then a mandated 20% transfer to the special aid fund for related New York State aid. So you resulted in net change in fund balance of 1.8 million. So you added 1.8 million to your fund balance, resulting in an ending fund balance of 5.4 million. And then we'll go over your major revenues. As you can see, you have your property tax, your levy of 10.5 million. You have the STAR aid, which comes from the state. But let's focus on the major changes in your state, where your revenues exceeded your budget. So your use of money in property, you budgeted 9,000, you came in about 383,000. And that's related to the school district invested monies in your class. That's where you invest in related U.S. treasuries and such. And that came with interest rates about 4 to 5%. So that's where you saw a great increase in revenues this year. And as we all know, interest rates are starting to come down, so we anticipate that revenue source coming down in the future years. You have your state aid, which is given to you by New York State. That includes your basic formula aid, your BOCES aid, excess cost aid. And then you'll see your miscellaneous and other, you budgeted 91,000, came in about 1.1 million, and that's related to a refund of prior year expenditures. There was delayed billing for tuition bills from other school districts. So this year they caught up on the billing, and the district initially estimated that liability, which ended up resulting in a refund of the expenditures and an adjustment to write off those old payables. And then we'll go over the 5-year revenue history. As you can see, the property tax levy slowly increased. From 23 to 24, it was a 3.5% increase in your levy. And as you can see, once again, the use of money in property, your interest earnings went up with the investments in the New York class. And then once again, the miscellaneous and other, an increase related to that write-off of the old payables. So you ended up with total revenues of 13.57 million. And then your major expenditures, your general government support, that's like your administrative, finance department, board, the superintendent's office. Your instruction, that's your largest expenditure, and that's related to the expenditures incurred for the teaching of the children, teaching of the students. That's the teacher salaries, textbooks, materials and supplies. Transportation, these are the costs for transporting students to and from schools, extracurricular activities. And then your second largest expenditure is your employee benefits, and these are contractually required to be paid. Includes health insurance, social security, your employees' retirement system, your teacher retirement system. Your debt service, those are your principal and interest payments for the bond you have outstanding. And then once again, your transfers out to your other funds. So originally budgeted 12.5 million, came in 11.7 million, so you performed under budget, which is good. And then once again, just the 5-year expenditure history. As you can see, expenditures have been slowly increasing, your instruction costs have gone up, employee benefits as well with the increase in the health insurance rates, and your debt service payments have gradually increased over time. And then I'll hand it over to Scott.
So I think of all the slides in this presentation, I think this is really the most important slide if you're going to focus on anything. So this is the fund balance. So as we saw from an earlier slide in the 24 column at the end of this year, you have 5.4 million in total fund balance, which was up from the 3.5 million in fund balance in the previous year. So that was about a $1.9 million increase or so. But the fund balance is really broken down into different pots of money, and they all have different requirements and limitations. So anything that's in the restricted area, the first group, that totals this year $1.7 million, these things are restricted either under general municipal law or education law, but none of these things can happen without board approval. So it's under the auspice of New York State law, but with board approval for all these items. So the first item is for tax certiorari claims. You have about $54,000 to fund that. That just increased from last year from interest, earnings that were applied to the balance. You have money set aside for the ERS retirement, the Employees Retirement System contribution, $521,000. So, this is the pot of money that's available should retirement rates spike up again. If the market has a downturn and they increase rates, you'd be able to go to this without having to, raise additional taxes to help fund an increase for that purpose. You reestablished a TRS retirement contribution system to the teachers' retirement system of about $60,000 this year. This one does have limits each year of what you can put in and what it can grow to, but this is nowhere near the limit for that. You then have money set aside for debt service obligations, and the only change from last year was, again, interest earnings applied to that balance. These funds could only be used to help offset your debt service costs on your bonds, your principal and interest payments that you owe on your bonds. You have some money set aside for unemployment benefits. Again, that just grew by an interest allocation for the year from last year. You have a reserve for future capital projects. Now, in this one this year, you did take down $45,000 from that, and that was part of the transfers that Claudia was talking about earlier that moved those resources to the capital fund. And then, of course, interest was then added to that, and we end up at $70,000 at the end of this year. And then the last restricted item is something called the employee benefit accrued liability. It's just a mouthful to basically talk about vacation and sick time that would be owed employees. And so that's available for that in case in a given year you have a lot of retirements and you may have to pay out some additional vacation or sick time that, wasn't accounted for in the budget. And again, there was just some interest applied to that from last year. So 1.7 of your total 5.4 million are in those buckets and can only be used for those purposes, again, with board action. Then we have assigned fund balance, a small amount for what's called purchases on order or encumbrances. So these were POs that were not completed at the end of the year, and they just carry over and amend the budget you're in now so you can finish paying those items for $8,000. Then as part of your 24-25 budget, you gave back $902,000 in property tax relief for the 24-25 fiscal year. So when you adopted your budget for 24-25, you actually anticipate spending $902,000 more than what you're going to take in as revenues. But you're saying, hey, we have like a savings account fund balance, and we're going to give that back in the form of tax relief rather than reducing spending or raising taxes by a larger amount. So when you take out of the 5.4 million, the money that's restricted of 1.7 million and the 911,000 that's assigned for those two purposes, what you're left with is 2.7 million in unassigned fund balance. Now, New York state law only allows public schools to maintain 4% of their budget in unassigned fund balance. Your $2.7 million does equate to about 20% of your budget. So obviously, New York State can look to you to kind of develop a plan to get in compliance with unassigned fund balance. But obviously, currently in a very healthy position. And then just to quickly touch on the fund balances in the funds other than the general fund. So you have a capital projects fund for major capital improvements. It started the year with about 492,000. You see the 45,000 that we just talked about that came over from the general fund, and you spent 109,000. So the ending fund balance in capital is 427,000. In the detailed audit report, which you were all provided with, there's a listing, a project length schedule listing of all the projects that make up that balance. School lunch fund is basically an inactive fund. There were some chargebacks from general to this fund, and now there's basically $1,000 left in there. And then lastly, the special purpose fund is kind of a catch-all fund, but the main thing that runs through there is the student activity funds, the extra classroom activity funds. That is of the 55,000. The student activity funds represent about 52,000 of that balance. So that's what makes up the fund balances of the other funds. And Claudia, I think we'll just wrap things up with just a debt service review.
Yes, so we just have one outstanding bond that was issued in 2022. It was issued for 8.3 million, and at the end of the fiscal year, you have about 7.5 million left on that bond. And as you can see, the long-term debt schedule payments you have through 2037 to pay off the remaining principal of 7.5 million and interest payments of totaling to 1.8 million. And that's based upon an interest rate of 3 to 3.5%. Questions?
One quick question. The interest rate on the bond, is that fixed? Is that trending?
Going back to page, thank you, this was great. Going back to page 6, the overview, I think this is something we talked about in committee as well. So when we talk about the refund of the write-offs, that is not something that we anticipate happening that brought us up significantly in the miscellaneous other. Well, it does take us a while generally because of the way the billing works for our high schools. We don't anticipate year over year having that as a revenue source, correct?
No, it's not typical. We had a number of items that happened at the same time. So you had, some unexpected, students that were high cost moving out of the district. So we no longer had to have payables for that. And then we also had a reduction in the tuition rate for one of our schools below what our contract amount was. So then there was money that was part of the payables that were related to that. And right now, all of those are cleaned up. We only have, I think, maybe 40,000 of outstanding payable that's in the books related to tuition. So it's much significant difference then.
Thank you. I just want to make sure it's clear that it's not like year over year, we're gonna suddenly see another $1 million jumping into this.
This is what we refer to as a one-shot,
Yes.
as it were. Yes.
Do you have any other questions?
So I just, you mentioned there were, some of our funds were not at the maximum that we could put into them. Is that something that BOE advises us on?
Yeah, so we would make recommendations to the finance committee about how to adjust the targets. I think one of the ones that we did adjust this year was the employee retirement one. That is close to the target. And then we will be, in subsequent years, we'll be bringing up the teacher's retirement one, because that one was reduced all the way to 0 in the year prior. And there's a limit to, you can only do, I think it's 2% of the salaries a year and up to a maximum of 10. So we have a few more years where we can put money in that. And the other ones is a discussion with the finance committee as to, if we want to put more in them. But a lot of them you need to have justification for. I mean, you don't,
And there's no ones that we're not funding, there's not a special education one.
They're not allowed to have one, correct? They still haven't allowed that
For special ed,
for special ed. That's what I'd love
not
to
that
see.
I've heard of now.
No, I think there was lobbying efforts a couple of years ago for the state to create a special education line item or reserve for a district like us at our size would be amazing.
yeah, that would help out a lot, because right now we have to budget for placements, contingent placements, just in case someone moves into the district that's high cost. We have to have a placeholder in the budget for that we won't necessarily spend, and then you have the different, that adds to the difference between actual budget and actual.
I mean, one of the other things we did talk about, we've been looking at is the unassigned number. Well, the state has stayed at 4% for a very long time. The cost of, like, say, if you need to do the roof in an emergency, there was a flood or something like that. The cost of doing all of that has gone up. Well, the 4% stays the same. 4% of our budget doesn't get us very far. We need to jump in and stuff.
But you are allowed to create like that future capital project reserve, you can go to the voters to, create a capital reserve where they would have to give you approval to create a capital reserve, and there's a limit on the amount of time, and you have to state how much you can put into the reserve, and generally it would come from unexpended monies each year, and you would fund that reserve and build it up over time, and then when you're ready to do a capital project, you would have to go back to the voters to get approval to use those funds.
So it's not really gonna help with emergencies?
No,
Or
no,
special
no.
education students.
So it
Not
doesn't help with those
no.
two.
Not a good.
Not if you really want the roof within.
Yeah.
He's running, I think, 20-something weeks of approval.
Yes.
That's a lot.
Takes forever.
Yes.
So the capital reserve though, is that the future capital projects? We already have that reserve, right? We have to get approval to put more money into it?
Yeah, you have to get more approval to take it out, and you have an approval to put it in for a certain, up to a certain level, I believe. So, it is kind of restricted because it's in and out, you have to ask permission. So,
Right.
that makes
But
that.
that's the 70,000.
Yeah,
Correct.
I believe that was created in order to plan for the capital project that we just completed.
In part, yes. Yeah, and then it originally got to have over $1 million in it, which was, $1 million was transferred when they did the authorization for the eight whatever million additional. So
That's how we got to 8 for the
Yeah.
bond versus.
versus
full
9.9, yeah.
Do you have any other questions? I hope you have fun visiting us this summer.
Great.
Thank you, Claire, that was a great presentation. It was nice to have somebody who was on, you were on site with us? Yes. Yeah, great. Thank you for coming out and sharing what you learned. We always appreciate having you guys here. So, thank you so much.
Have a good evening.
And I couldn't do what I do without Genevieve, who, helps to make sure that all the reports are done on time and we get everything done.
I just hope she has as much fun over the summer with the audit as I have when we get these presentations, so we thank you.
Just so you know, Sarah, you bring the joy to us.
Good, I'm so glad. No, thank you guys. I mean, to get the unmodified opinion wouldn't be possible with the work your office is doing to our folks. And the reason I love the audit so much is that you get to see where every dollar goes and know that the way we're spending public money is accounted for and carefully watched, and that we have a plan for using it in the future. And I mean, I just think it's great that we're able to keep this, like, it helps us hold the preparing for the budget too. So we know what we spent in the past. It's a great overview. So that's why I think it's fun. But thank you for all the work you do.
Can I ask you a couple of questions?
Yeah, go for it.
So just, the difference between the future capital projects fund that's in restricted and then the capital projects fund that has, the 427,926 fund balance as of 6/30/24. Can you just explain
Yeah, so
the difference between those?
the capital fund is working capital, and some of that is for projects that are open, right? So there's project balance remaining in the large capital project. There's unexpended funds in there, and then there's also funds that are related to the water heater project and other things in there, making up that total. So that is, so you when they say a fund, so there's the capital fund, there's the school lunch fund, there's a special fund. Those things are all classes of money. The reserves is an individual item that's actually all in the general fund, those reserves. But the capital projects fund is basically an account where all capital project expenditures and revenues go through.
So like the school development, the extra classroom activity money stays in its own account and never crosses over. But
Correct.
within that, there's still different designations.
Yes.
Of where that money can go and how it can be used.
Right.
To clarify, in the full audit report, the bound book, the information on the 427,000 that's in capitals on pages 62 and 63.
Great, thank you. And then just one other quick question. In terms of, the expenditures, we were like, a little below for instruction, a little below budget for transportation. The difference isn't that significant. Is that just was there any particular like major factor that?
Yeah, that's tuition, because tuition is also in instruction. So that's tuition payments that we didn't need to make for students that are no longer with us, that were high cost. And then transportation for those same students, which is usually on a onesie, twosie kind of transportation basis.
Yeah. And
So
that's the kind of thing that comes in sort of after the start of the school year where we don't necessarily know.
yeah, we had somebody move out that was very high cost mid-year. Yeah, that changes things. Yeah.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions? You can all read this later tonight and send it your questions. Okay.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks, guys.
You got it. Have a good evening.
Okay. Moving on then to accept annual external audit report. Be resolved, Board of Education of the Garrison Union Preschool District hereby accepts annual external audit report for the 2023-2024 school year as presented by PFK O'Connor Davies Accounting Firm. May I have a motion, please?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Nays, abstention. All right. That was fun. Now we move on to the board, discussion of board goals. So coming out of our retreat, I took the suggestions that were sent to me and compiled a document of draft board goals.
You did a good job. Usually, they really learn.
I'm trying, well, Dusty did that actually,
Thank you.
just to be very clear, I sent an email and Dusty created everything else. So no credit goes to me on any of the Google documents.
Okay.
I did
That
not-
makes more sense.
Yes. But I did take this, so goal one was where we got the most feedback, and that's the thing we spent the most time talking about. So we kind of had three different, should we all agree this evening that this should be our lead goal, although really what order they're in necessarily should dictate that. I have innovative curriculum development, or next generation learning, or future ready curriculum. So we can pick our favorite language on that. And then if you'll just look down at the objectives, these are just all objectives. They kind of, some of them kind of say the same thing, but it really depends on what language we're looking for and what we're looking for in this goal. And then when you go to goal two, it's community engagement. This is largely the same as what we've had in the past. And then responsible fiscal stewardship, again, similar to what we've talked about in the past in terms of finance. So, any thoughts? Let's start with goal one. Any thoughts on where we, coming out of the retreat, where we want to end up with this? Does any of this language speak to anyone? We should pick one, shouldn't we?
I'm partial to next generation learning. I think that was Greg's suggestion initially during our retreat, and it makes a little bit more sense to me. But I mean, innovative curriculum development could sort of be anything.
Well, that's kind of what the teachers do too, right?
Yeah.
What, the innovative?
They do the curriculum development.
Right.
We're not developing any
Right.
curriculum here.
Future ready curriculum potentially, but I like next generation learning. You throw it down.
I'm on board with that. The only bias against future ready is just, in my day job, I worked on a project about 4 years ago that was called future ready, so I feel like that term might be expired. So.
Alright.
That's my only hesitation though.
Does everybody like next generation learning?
I especially like it because it focuses not only on what the teachers do, but what the students.
That's a good point. And it connects to the standards, which I think is key.
And also to our vision of that.
Good job, Rick. That's great. You get extra points tonight. Someone's keeping score.
She was fine, she was
Yeah.
planning committee.
I'm bonding it.
All right, moving on then. So we're gonna, if no objections, we're gonna go with next generation learning. So what are our objectives under that? Objective A, support the development and implementation of a future-ready, get rid of that language, curriculum designed to meet the changing demands of the future workforce, embrace emerging technologies, foster critical thinking, and cultivate lifelong learners. Objective B is very similar, identify the skills students will need entering the workforce during a time of rapid technological and environmental change.
So the only thing I would say objective B is that the other objectives are us supporting the administration to do so. Is the board going to identify the skills the students need, or is we going to support the administration and staff to do so?
I think objective B also, just to add on to that, is what we did with the vision of graduate.
Yeah, you're right.
Right, I mean, hopefully. And good skills and good position.
So we've kind of done that part, and now the
Objective B is
supporting
accomplished already.
stage
Yeah.
of taking that vision of the graduate to the next level for the next generation. So that would be striking objective B.
Just having three, please.
Well, I don't know that I think also really captures a lot of what the Bob does.
Is that a new thing?
I like it, I think it's better than the VOG. We can vote, we can say vote. Cool, okay, I like that too. I think in objective A, it does talk about curriculum design, which I think Forge doesn't do. So I think objective A is fine, but it could be, has to be changed, or objective C is about supporting.
So
Curriculum
support
development.
administration, professional learning, and curriculum development to create an educational environment that prepares students for the 21st century workforce and society. That is very all-encompassing and very similar with less words to objective A, but without stating the new curriculum.
And it's also student focused.
So the only thing about, or if we're proposing getting rid of objective A is I think it helps to have some of the detail here, like embrace emerging technologies, foster, critical thinking and lifelong learners is maybe the vision of a graduate, but maybe just, so we don't
Something
really,
about tech.
Would you like
Well-
us a separate objective that like support the administration with embracing emerging technologies as its own bullet point maybe?
Emerging, when you say,
we could probably do that, yeah, merge A with C.
you could add the, prepare students for 21st century worker society by embracing emerging technology, fostering critical thinking, and cultivating lifelong learners.
One thing, do we want to specify anything about the environmental program? Because we talked a lot about that last time. And that feels like it's getting a little bit lost in what we're talking about. So, I mean, we could add that into whatever it is we're ending up with. But it feels like we have those two like twin parts of this.
Twin pillars. Did we want to talk about what our thought process is for this at all? Since I think this is the first time we talked about this in
In the public section,
Yeah.
yeah. So we can talk, you wanna speak to that? Or do you want me to say?
I'm happy to do
Go
it.
for
So this first goal in our proposed Board of Education goals comes out of the retreat where I think we largely agreed that to complement the very strong environmental education component that we have in the sort of the impact the environmental education has had on the school and some of our curriculum programming, we thought it would make sense to add a technology or innovation component as well that would be a complement to the environmental piece, not at all looking to diminish the environmental piece at all, but really to sort of try and offer both, create the same sort of competency that we've created in the environmental education in the technology piece, especially in the wake of James's departure, and we have an opportunity now to sort of rethink James Yap's departure, opportunity to rethink the technology and innovation component of our staffing.
That was a great summary, I like that.
Great.
What if, under the top, under the goal, say next generation learning with environmental education and technology, so that it is really clear that that's where we're looking for this next generation learning, is in those two sort of pillars as we talked about in the retreat. So that it makes it a little more focused as the goal. Next generation learning in environmental.
Well, I thought that maybe being a little bit more broad for the goal, and then the objectives would be more specific, like things that we could accomplish and almost measure, against by the end of the year, like how well have we done with those objectives. If we reach those objectives, we will then taking steps towards our goal.
That's a good point. Okay, so then we are still looking to incorporate the environmental education part into the objectives and technology. And are we happy with then, if we take objective C, make it objective A, but add Jennifer's statement of prepare students for the 21st century workforce and society by embracing emerging technologies, fostering critical thinking, and cultivating lifelong learners. That doesn't touch on the
Or we
environment
can
there.
add something to the environment.
Yeah.
Do we need to say the fostering critical thinking and cultivate lifelong learners, since they are, isn't that part of the vision of a graduate?
We don't need it here.
We don't need it here.
So we could say,
Yeah.
by embracing emerging technologies and,
Maybe add environmental education to that, just add it to the list.
Or
Yeah.
a curriculum like designed to meet the changing demands of the future workforce, which includes whatever technological competence, these aren't the right words, but like technological part and the environment, awareness of environmental issues and challenges.
I mean, I
How
think
about
we
just
just,
demands of the future workforce,
To
in a
specify
time
what-
of rapid technological and environmental change? Which is a little bit of part of objective B.
maybe take some of that and maybe put it. To specify more what you think or envision the changing demands of the future workforce entail.
Okay. Jocelyn, could you read the whole sentence with that change?
Based on all of our feedback.
So we start with objective C, support administration, professional learning, and curriculum development. Create an educational environment that prepares students for the 21st century workforce and society.
By embracing
By
emerging,
embracing, no,
by embracing emerging technologies in a time of rapid technological and environmental change.
get rid of embracing emerging technology.
In the time.
I think in a time of rapid,
Okay.
in this time.
Yeah, because it's not the technologies, it's the skills, the teamwork, the mathematical thinking skills, all those skills that kind of make technology. It's not technology itself.
Right.
It's the-
Are we clear on what that is?
I'll write it down again.
Okay.
So-
And then objective D, which would then become objective B, is encourage the hiring of key staff to execute on innovative curriculum development across grade levels.
Yeah, this was fine, and I thought to make it very specific, again, something we could measure and really track, and maybe it's not innovative curriculum development, but basically it's like somebody or people to do what the first objective is. You
To
know
support
what I mean?
it.
So whatever
Yeah.
language, those two things should kind of count.
I think encourage and support, because, and support
Yeah.
plus is funding. Yeah, I think that's a good measurable objective, if anyone else objects.
Greg, what do you think?
I think they're all great to support girls. I think, I do think that, that adding A and B, combining it with the language of, environmental change. And I think objective D, as you said, which will be B, is encourage and hire the key staff to meet objective A is fine. Because your objective A is a long sentence that encompasses a lot. And part of that is the planning, the preparation, and the execution of that. We need key people that we don't have right now to get that done. So I think those are two great goals and a worthwhile, two great objectives for a very worthwhile goal.
I just also want to, in thinking about this, we talked a little bit about this in our retreat too. Objective, what will be objective B, the hiring of key staff is something very measurable in a year's time. When we're talking about professional learning, curriculum development, those aren't going to happen quickly. That is a longer term goal for sure. We should be mindful of that it's not something that's going to happen overnight. We can't just turn to the whole administration, which is limited, and all the staff and say, all right,
Do that.
yes.
Is the word staff, correct? I feel like this came up in policy, weren't they changing staff to something else? Personnel, I don't know if that matters, the state.
Oh, that's
Encouraging
important, all the policies, yeah.
I'm not sure why.
Personnel.
Should we change it to key
Is it
personnel?
consistent? Yeah.
for the merged A,
Yeah, you got
does
it?
it sound what people were saying? I mean, I've gotten through everything. Support the development and implementation of the curriculum designed to meet the changing demands of the future workforce, prepare students for the impact of emerging technologies, and build the skills students will need as they enter the workforce during a time of rapid technological and environmental change.
I thought we were not doing the curriculum development, I thought we were doing this. Support administration, professional learning, and curriculum development to create an educational environment that prepares students for the 21st century workforce society during this time of rapid technological and environmental change. So I was C
You had that
dominant
written?
and you were A dominant.
Yes.
She does, she has that.
But I thought that I was supposed to do C.
Yeah.
Yeah, I started with A, but that's fine.
No, but I don't think that's what I thought I was supposed to do.
I think the key part is supporting the administration
If we're not reading the curriculum document.
Yeah, as long as that is clear, which I think is kind of clear.
Well, I'll email this, can I email this thing to everybody and doesn't count as something? Or should I just say it out loud now? Or just email it to you too?
So here's the thing, we can adopt it tonight if we get the language done. If we don't get the language done, we can put it off till the 16th and adopt it. I think we have a clear message to our administration of where we're gonna end up, so we can finalize the language outside of this evening's meeting. So I think we are getting a little bit caught up in the weeds, so send that out maybe, and then we will revise it and we'll put it on to adopt then on the 16th.
If we, a suggestion, if we put it out as a Google Doc, we can make edits right on there. We could make lack of versions going back and forth. We could do a shared Google Doc and we could work on it and we could be ready for the 16th.
And Dusty and Greg absolutely know how to do
Yes, we will.
Desperate.
it.
All right, so that was.
Oh, teaching.
He's good teacher. Goal 1. So we've got goal 1 down with next generation learning. We're gonna finalize our objectives and just sort of think those through and then bring it back. Community engagement, we're happy with this, the second goal. I think I've been very pleased to see a lot of requests from the community to volunteer their time for various committees such as group. We're happy with that one. Responsible fiscal stewardship. This is a focus on long-term fiscal stability through strategic planning, negotiation, and cooperation with key internal and external partners. I think that's something is an ongoing process that we are doing. Objective B, continue to seek efficiencies and explore innovative possibilities in the budget process. I don't know how many more efficiencies we're gonna find, but if they're there to find, I think Joe will unearth them for us, right?
Do you think that just related to that, I mean, we have things that mostly we talk about facilities related things that we might wanna do. Do we, as a board, want this goal to relate specifically to that at all? I don't want to have to prolong this discussion.
I think it should relate to all efficiencies.
It's all,
You never know where you're gonna find efficiency.
I think, keep it a little, broader is generally better, because then let's listen to what our committees say when they come up, if something comes up that we need done, that is not a roof, and trumps a roof, we can talk about it. It'd be a pretty big thing, to be bigger than a roof. All right, so we're happy with this, we're gonna send around a draft, and we'll have it then as a Google Doc, and we will then have it for your attention to this so far. And we'll keep us going then. Public comment. Public comment is intended for members of the community to speak openly and voice concerns in accordance with policy 1510 of the Garrison Union Free School District. Any person wishing to speak shall comply with all provisions of this policy. Comments about specific school personnel or individual students is a violation of board policy. Concerns regarding students or personnel should be discussed privately with the superintendent or appropriate administrator. Comments should be limited to 3 minutes, and speakers are asked to conduct themselves in a respectful manner. The board will listen to comments but will not engage in dialogue. Any necessary follow-up will be noted and provided through the appropriate channel. Members of the public wishing to comment during board meetings are asked to place their name and town of residence on the sign-in sheet. Commenters will be invited to the podium to address the board. No one here this evening, despite my calls to come watch the audit. So I'm going to go ahead and move on to public comment. There'll be another opportunity later in the evening. Moving on to accept the minutes. Be it resolved, the Board of Education of the Garrison Union Free School District does hereby accept the minutes of the regular business meeting of September 18th, 2024, and the minutes of the board retreat of September 23rd, 2024. May I have a motion, please? Thank
I
you.
just have a question.
Sure.
I'm sorry I didn't ask this earlier, but it mentions that the committee reports, the minutes of the committee reports will be part of the record, but they're not attached, they're not part of the minute.
They're part of the minutes as far as a separate document.
So where are those?
So those are in the minutes book that's kept in there.
Right, but I thought, my feeling was the whole idea of this was that it would be available for the public on board docs.
Okay, and they are. They're in the public section on board docs. When I post them with the agenda,
Right.
but I can post them, I can include them.
I
in
think
the
it would be
minutes section
a good
also.
idea, because this all came up when I had done a committee report.
Yep.
And then someone came the next meeting and we couldn't talk to the
I'll
committee
combine
report. If it could be all as one in the minutes,
Okay.
that would be great. Just for better communication with the public.
Okay. Any other questions or thoughts on the minutes as presented?
I guess they'll have to be as modified, right? Because if we're gonna add your committee report and my committee report to the official minutes. Yeah,
So if the minutes are on the agenda, like my minutes are there. So they need to be like,
so what had happened last year was we had the budget advisory committee meeting, and that had reported out at prior meeting, and someone came in the public and was asking questions. And we weren't allowed to comment because it was during public comment, but because the minutes that I had written to the board were not part of the minutes document from the last meeting, they didn't have an easy way to reference it. So that's why I raised the issue of moving forward, if committee minutes could be part of the minutes document, it would be better communication to the public to be able to see what our committee reports actually were. Every committee meeting might not need to have minutes. It might just be a report that's 2 or 3 sentences in the official minutes of the meeting, but for those committees that had a more detailed, and need to have more detailed information available for people, I've always seen it before as part of the official minutes.
Yeah, it's just, it'll make it easier to find. We already have them written up, you just drop them in, right? It's just there. All right. Be resolved, Board of Education of the Garrison Union Free School District does hereby accept the minutes of the regular business meeting of September 18th, 2024, and the minutes of the board retreat of September 23rd, 2024, as amended.
So moved.
Thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Nays, abstention. That brings us back to committee reports. All right, Finance Committee report. Kent?
so we met before the retreat last week. We reviewed some of the key dates and timelines related to the budget process. Greg and Joe are going to work with the staff, and they have a goal of end of December to get all those requests in and then figure out what they want to prioritize for the next budget. Targeting a date of March 5th for the first budget presentation to the full board. We went over the audit committee findings, which we just went over here. Obviously, the fund balance is over 4% due to a lot of different fortunate things like the payroll interest rates we've seen and tuition write-offs and some different ebbs and flows in who's coming to school in our district. 4% is the state number. And for a district like Yonkers, 4% is a huge number. For us, it's not a very big number. We talked a lot about that. In fact, that one big thing would really wipe out that 4% in our case. So we are certainly going to follow the state rules, but we are maybe keep a little more than 4% just for our size. Hopefully I won't go to jail for that.
You will.
Talked a little bit about some of the priorities among the members of the finance committee as well as the board. Talked a little bit about capital projects. Obviously talking about we need to get input from the facilities committee on the priorities of what needs to be done and how do we structure that within our budget each year. And so we will be fortunate to be on both committees. We'll help integrate that. And then we talked about the budget advisory committee. We're responsible for giving them a charge for this year. We agreed that the focus should be on school lunch. And so I talked to Jen a little bit about that, and she's going to get started on that. So that is, because I took notes and had to take minutes, I remember much more than I usually do about these. Thank you, Jen.
Question for finance committee. So did you guys talk about or are you going to be making recommendations with Joe about how we're gonna fund the restricted accounts and that kind of thing, or?
Yeah, I mean, I think we want
Process.
to figure out what needs to be done as far as capital projects. How do we integrate in that with fund balance? And then what's left over, and then how do we want to structure what we put back in the restricted based on the total number we put out to the public for the vote, the amount of money we need to spend for capital projects and all those type of things. We did that last year in June, I believe, so probably would be something we wait for to see how everything comes together before we figure out what we have left.
Gotcha. So we're not actually gonna move any of the funds out of the unallocated, the undesignated fund balance until basically the budget process at the end of the year. Is that right? So they'll just sit in that account. Gotcha. Okay, great.
Any other questions for him? Thank you for your very detailed report. Going on to DEI committee report, Jocelyn?
So I have the next two committee reports and we just met both of them today. So apologies that I don't have any minutes and also my brain is scrambled, so. But I'll start with DEI. We met in the afternoon right after school in here and we have, I think, maybe 6 faculty on the committee, which is great. Eric is on the committee and we have 3 community members. So it's a nice large group, all committed to ensuring that we work through our anti-racism task force work plan, and continue the charge of the DEI committee. We mostly discussed 2 things. One is brief, which is there's a new club, middle school club that Ms. Enderley is running, which is called Culture and Conversation. In fact, there's a movie next week for 4th grade and up. Anyway, it seems like a great way to engage the students around some of the topics that touch on DEI. And she has about 25 students who signed up for it. So it seems like it'll be a good way to engage the students. And then the second major thing we spoke about was the community book read. Many of you remember a couple years ago, we read Wish Tree across all grade levels. We do have GSEC funding waiting to do another community book read. This committee this year is charged with getting it all done. And we've decided to do, 2 or more books. One is going to be for the lower grades and one for the middle school. That is all operating under the same umbrella theme. We have some titles, right, that we're working on. Some people will read through them and they'll make a selection by the end of October, purchase a book for everyone, and develop some programming. And the goal of the community book read is not to make the teachers have more work to do. It's to make sure that a theme is kind of interjected and into our communities, into the households that our students live in. So it's really meant to also engage the families around some of the issues that the DEI committee is working on.
Would it be possible to get some copies of the books to the senior center at Butterfield and invite them to participate in that theme maybe?
Yes, I think so, because one thing we talked about at the meeting but haven't really moved forward necessarily yet with is how do we engage the broader community, either the parents, families, or folks who don't have children at the school but might want to engage in a book club type of thing. So yes, I think we floated that out there, probably partnering with the libraries too, because they already have book read programs. Did I miss anything?
No, that was great. And just about the activities around the theme are going to be some of the work that we'll do. And if engaging the larger community, other than just parents, guardians, and caretakers, we can certainly look at ways to do that, and engage the whole Garrison community.
I think that is a big lift, but I think it's a strong goal for the committee. We have a lot of people on the committee this year. Yeah.
Are they all committee members?
But let's see, are we all? I don't know, we might.
It might be worth to reach out to the authors of the publishers, speaking of the publisher.
Yes, let me write this one down.
Because you never know, if the author might be willing to come, or Zoom in, or provide something, a video, doesn't hurt to ask.
Great idea. And so then I think some of the books we were looking at might be recent, Newberry or Caldecott orders, but that doesn't mean we can't.
Doesn't hurt to ask.
Depends on how local.
Doesn't hurt to ask. Okay, thank you. That's a good idea. Can we drop your name?
They won't know me, but you can. No, but we should talk about how to do that.
Yes, thank you. Good advice. Okay, so there's DEI and then.
I have one follow-up on the
Yeah.
DEI. I'm thrilled to hear that there is a culture and conversation group starting, and I think having read through the audit reports, I'd be even more excited if it came through, I know I've said this before, as a real club, and I hope so we can access some of the funds we have sitting in extra classroom.
I don't know that that has anything with me, but I would like to pass that on to.
I think it's such a wonderful idea, and I really appreciate that the students, the staff are all engaging in an organized group, whatever you want to call it, around that conversation, putting things together. The staff is volunteering their time to make that happen after school hours. It's just fantastic. So whatever we can do from our end, which is money, to support it, I think is a great thing to do. It is wonderful for our school community.
Me too. I would love to support
Yeah.
what Ms. Emily is already doing. I
was
don't,
really
yeah.
pleased to hear about that, and that it's connected back.
And I know that they have plans already for the whole year of how to engage, depending on, the different months, so they have themes, and it's like, so.
All right, sorry,
Great.
that's distracting planning.
No, you just wanted to bring audit into it somehow.
I did.
Okay, so
I worked really hard on that.
now this planning update. Okay, so for the planning committee, Sarah and Jennifer sit on it. And Dr. Stoll was at the meeting, as was Allison Emig and Rachel Arbor. And that's the committee. Oh, no, and then we also have Alice Cronin, who wasn't able to make it, but she would normally sit with us. So jump in, that one is the one that just happened, and I'm still thinking. So I think that really what we come down to is we revisited the work we were doing last year, which was related to like report cards and assessments. And we spoke as a group, and we really wanted to address, let me just tell you, strategy 2 of our strategic coherence plan, which I'll just read very quickly, is that the district will build the capacity to observe and provide reliable feedback to each student regarding their acquisition of the competencies in the Garrison BOE. The point is, this is why we were working on report cards for so long, and so we kind of are maybe modifying, because we kind of have an adequate report card that addresses a lot of the skills, especially of the vision of the graduate. And so we are toying around with ideas of how do we actually engage the students around self-assessments, perhaps, and being able to put together, and I'll put it in quotations, like a portfolio of some of the things that they learn that actually align with the skills and disposition of the vision of the graduate. Nothing is set in stone. We were batting around ideas of how do we incorporate the Vogue into our assessments without changing report cards completely. And there was a lot of staff, personnel, and faculty last year who worked on maybe tweaking it, so we want to incorporate the work they've already done into this kind of assessment. Did I kind of capture that? Okay, so we'll see. Thanks for, asking around if people would be willing to work on it.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I'd say on it is we're really looking at, not to get into a Madonna song in Vogue, we're really looking at kids self-assess where they are on the continuum of the dispositions of the vision of the graduate. Problem with the report card, it measures specific skills that are aligned to New York State standards. It doesn't necessarily measure your portrait of the graduate. And what's the best way to give kids feedback is first self-assess and work with an adult on, refining that self-assessment in terms of those dispositions of the vision of the graduate. So we'll work on that. We'll kick it around to the staff. They worked really hard on thinking through that work last year. We want to honor that work from last year and get their feedback on what they think and really put the agency back with the students and thinking about their own thinking, which is metacognition, which is the highest level of cognition for students.
Okay, good. Thank you. 2 other quick things we discussed. One is the science of reading, literacy and reading. That's supporting strategy 3, which is that we'll provide professional learning tools and opportunities. So, we're working with a consultant, and Allison updated on this and all of the work that they're doing to kind of create and align curriculums and things like that, which I'm going to keep it short and 30. And then the last thing we talked about was creating a concept of a plan. It's creating priorities to develop an environmental and sustainability plan, but that also ties in all of the things that we've been talking about, which is pretty much next generation learning and skill and disposition acquisition. So we're gonna try to do a priority list of how do we start to embark on such a plan. Dusty's trying to take notes for that. Don't worry, I'm gonna conclude my minutes. But the point is, we're not asking personnel to join the plan yet, or come up with a plan. We're trying to really figure out how do we plan the plan. I like the plan. This is what happened. The bond We're doing both. But anyway, those are the 3 priorities that we came up with for the year for us.
I think that was a great summary. It's my first time with planning, and I was really impressed with the thoughtfulness of the group, administration, and all of us working together, and Rachel, on making sure that we don't just completely push into faculty and staff more and more initiatives.
They're already doing a lot. So how do
we don't need to overload.
Space this out.
Hence the thinking about the plan in advance of putting it in, because we've already done. We already have a lot of big initiatives going.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Jocelyn on either DEI or planning before we move on? Okay, thank you. All right, next we get to policy readings. We now have a second reading and approval of policy 5681, school safety plans. Be it resolved, the Board of Education of the Garrison Union Free School District, upon the recommendation of the policy committee chair, hereby approves policy 5681, school safety plans as presented. May I have a motion, please? You? Any further discussion or questions on school safety plans before we move to a vote? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Nays? Abstentions? Great, congratulations. Just approved the policy. Second reading and approval of policy 6550, leaves of absence. Be it resolved, Board of Education of the Garrison Union Free School District, upon the recommendation of Policy Committee Chair, hereby approves policy 6550, leaves of absence as presented. May I have a motion, please?
Second.
Thank you. Do I have any questions, recommended changes, comments on this policy before we move to a vote? Okay. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Nays? Abstentions? Moving on to CSE, CPSE recommendations. Be it resolved, the Board of Education of the Garrison Union Free School District approve the Committee on Special Education, CSE, and the Committee on Preschool Special Education, CPSE, recommendations and student placement. May I have a motion, please?
Motion.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Nays? Abstentions? Moving on to the consent agenda. Be it resolved, the Board of Education of the Garrison Union Free School District, pursuant to the provisions of education. Wait. So are we doing these all individually, Jesse? I don't know. What am I missing?
I'm looking right now. It's not even- Personal, oh. This is another area that's dropped off since.
This is the board docs. I'm gonna go one by one then real quick, guys.
Yeah.
So we don't have to rewrite this.
Hold on.
Oh, you can just read it. Be it resolved, all right, we're gonna go back for consent agenda. Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Garrison Union Free School District, upon the recommendation of Dr. Stoll, Superintendent, hereby approves the items of the personnel consent agenda as presented. May I have a motion, please?
Second.
You, and I believe there are a couple we want to just speak to. I'm gonna turn over to you, Greg.
Thank you, Sarah. I want to highlight a few. One is I shared with the Garrison community about the resignation of Rachel Arbor. I just want to thank Rachel for all her hard work that got us to where we are, to make environmental education and sustainability such a part of who Garrison is. We couldn't have done it without her effort, her energy. She's going off to, explore bigger and more grandiose plans of saving our planet, which we can do nothing but support her in. We will sorely miss her. And at the same time, we can be grateful and have gratitude towards her for all the work that she's done. So we wish Rachel the best in her future endeavors, and she is always welcome to come back and participate in our Youth Climate Summit, which we hope to keep going strong on. As I shared with the community, we will post this position and we will try to fill it with someone with the same skills and dispositions that Rachel brought to it, and the same energy and positivity she brought to it as well. The other thing I'd like to recognize this evening is we are appointing a teacher aide, replacing Jill Ater, who left us earlier in the year. Amy Haskell is not a stranger to us. We hired her as a building sub, and she's done wonderful and would like to make a more permanent position with us as a teacher aide. So we thank Amy for wanting to join our Garrison family, and we know that she's going to do an incredible job. She's also a certificated educator, which makes her invaluable in terms of another set of hands in our classroom that's certificated.
Do you have any questions before we move to a vote? Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Nays? Abstentions? All right. Moving on. Thank
So
you.
Sarah, you have to pull out C.
Yeah. You got it. Which is good because the thing isn't in there anyway, so. We're gonna go through these one by one then.
That was not in there.
No, but it's okay, because we're pulling out C and D, so we're just gonna do this
All the courses.
old school here.
Something that's going on with board docs.
Yes.
That's all right. So we're gonna start with the request for approval of the Garrison Teachers Association Memorandum of Agreement. Be it resolved, Board of Education of the Garrison Union Free School District, upon the recommendation of the superintendent, hereby approves the amended memorandum of agreement with the Garrison Teachers Association dated October 1, 2024, as presented, and thereby replacing the agreement previously approved on September 4, 2024. May I have a motion, please?
Motion.
Second.
Do you have any questions? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Nays, abstentions. All right. Moving on to C, approval of the 2023-2024 final AS7 contracts with BOCES. Be resolved that the Board of Education of the Garrison Union Free School District, upon the recommendation of the superintendent, hereby approves the 2023-2024 final AS7 contracts with the Putnam Northern Westchester BOCES as presented. May I have a motion, please?
Second.
Thank you. Do I have any questions? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Nays, abstentions.
I'm abstaining.
Thank you. Moving on to D, approval of PNW BOCES 2024-2025 contracts of service. Be it resolved, the Board of Education of the Garrison Union Free School District, upon the recommendation of the superintendent, hereby approves the 2024-2025 initial contract of services with the Putnam Northern Westchester BOCES as presented. May I have a motion, please?
Second.
Do you have any questions? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Nays, abstention.
Abstaining.
Thank you. Acceptance of donation. Be it resolved, the Board of Education of the Garrison Union Free School District, upon the recommendation of the superintendent, hereby accepts the Presidential Innovation Award for Environmental Educators Grant of $2,500 to be used for the funding of environmental education activities or programs to benefit Garrison students, and hereby authorizes the budget to be increased for these purposes. May I have a motion, please?
Second.
All right, do I have any questions before we move to a vote? Okay. In favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Nays, abstentions. Okay. I'm gonna read the recommended action on the equipment items to be accessed. But I'm not gonna list them all, if that's okay. As fun as that would be. Be it resolved, the Board of Education of the Garrison Union Free School District, upon the recommendation, recommendation of the superintendent, hereby approves the following items to be accessed. Items are listed and in board docs for everyone to view. May I have a motion, please?
Second.
Thank you. Okay. Any questions or comments?
Quick one, is this, for the vehicles, is this just not the same as the process that Joe and Tony for?
Well, so this is to get rid of them. So what we have to do first is ask permission to get rid of them, and then we can auction them off.
Gotcha, okay, sorry, I misunderstood.
And we did discuss adding the table saw possibly to the auction.
Yeah, so we're gonna also add the air conditioners and the table saw to be to go for sealed bids.
When is
So
this auction?
I will announce it and make sure that
You're
the
gonna table
whole.
saw?
I did that at 350.
Can you come
I
stand
want
by
a table
the-
What I would say
How many miles?
is buyers beware, and I would say
I heard it's like a Flintstones truck.
please look
To
at
the
it,
ground.
because rust.
Yeah.
Yeah. The plow trucks are, they
Susceptible to rust.
a lot of rust.
But do we post the date of the auction, like on the website somewhere?
But we will post it. They are open at a time. It's not like we have an auction here. So we gotta put an ad in the paper, and we'll list the items and say that bids are accepted until such and such time and such date, right? And I'll list the air conditioners and the table saw and the two vehicles, all right? And then whoever wants to submit a bid, submits a sealed bid, and then at the time, you know, it's gonna be probably like during the day, on a regular day. We'll open the bids and I will let whoever is the highest bidder know that you know, you're the right to buy one of our things.
If the iPad charging cabinet works, I would add that also.
It would, I mean, if you want, why don't you put it in there, sure.
Because I know someone who did on it.
No.
Do we get to keep the money, right?
Yes, well, it goes into the miscellaneous revenue, yes.
Your problem with that 4%.
It's in the fund balance.
Yeah, this will definitely get us a letter and a visit. Yes.
Sorry, my brain went to purchasing so fast. I was like, why are we purchasing at 2 months in?
We're not, you can.
Someone's purchasing one.
We're hoping somebody's purchasing. Yeah. Because if things go through without bids, we will, try to either give them away to another school or we will, sell them for scrap.
Okay, to have them removed possibly.
No, we won't pay to have them removed.
Okay. All right, well, that was fun. We're gonna go ahead and move to a vote unless there's any other questions on the approval of equipment items. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Nays? Abstentions, excuse me. Okay, moving on to G. Be resolved, the Board of Education of the Garrison Union Preschool District, upon the recommendation of the superintendent, hereby approves the following technology items to be accessed. I'm not gonna read them, but they are in board docs. May I have a motion, please?
Motion.
Okay, do you have any questions on these items to be accessed? We are not auctioning these off for sale.
I don't think so.
They do not work and they cannot be repaired, so they're being so valuable.
Is there any, are they gonna be fully, recycled, but also, like, I know they have like white, like drill bit through the hard drive?
Well, I think that they're Chromebooks, so they don't have.
Yeah, Chromebooks don't have hard drives. There is a couple Dell Latitude desktops on there. Those will be wiped, the hard drives will be wiped. And Joe, I'm sure we use a company to dispose of them in a environmentally friendly way.
Any other questions before we move to a vote? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Nays? Abstentions? We've now come to the second public comment. I'm not going to read the paragraph again, and we still do not have a public. So I'm going to continue on to executive session. Be it resolved, Board of Education, wait. We have to do board member comment first, right? Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to move that up there. I'm not sure how that shifted down. We're going to do board member comment, other discussion. Jocelyn?
I'm gonna read everyone, I'll say thank you to Joe, Genevieve, and my team for making the audit happen and also since we got the unmodified results, I appreciate it. And thanks for listening to your committee reports. Yeah, just
Great.
That's all.
Yep. Eric?
No.
Jennifer?
I'd like to echo Jocelyn's comments.
Dan?
I won't echo, but saying similar thoughts. But I also want to thank Rachel Arbor for her contributions to the district and the community, particularly as the parent of a young kid who, every day she saw Mrs. Arbor, there was, excitement, and I learned about composting through her, and, she told me, I always learned interesting new facts, basically, after a session with Mrs. Arbor. So, and I think she's left a great, she leaves a great legacy of environmental education with the district. So, best of luck to her on her future endeavors.
You? Peter?
Okay.
Okay. Kent?
Nothing, thank you.
I just have a couple of reminders for the board. On October 16th, our meeting will be a joint Board of Education meeting here with the Highland Falls Board. And then on November 13th, the Putnam Valley meeting will be a joint meeting with you as well. And we will have students hopefully attend. That will be excellent, which is always exciting. So
What does that mean?
So we open a joint meeting, all the board members can attend. I don't know if you've been to the one. So they've been at O'Neill the past couple of years. O'Neill's does them every year with us. And so the idea this year was to invite all the other high school partners. They do a presentation on what their curriculum is, sort of what are we getting when we send kids over there. And they generally also answer any questions we may have about the program. And then the students speak to their experience. At least that's been what I saw in the past. I went over last year. It was really interesting. They had a number of seniors and juniors at O'Neill speaking about both how Garrison prepared them. The one thing they brought up repeatedly that was being able to take living environment really changed the way they could approach their classes. And then hearing about what their future plans were going out of O'Neill. So that was interesting. But it'll be nice to have our other high school partners so that it's not just as one-sided stuff. So I'm excited to have Putnam Valley join us. We've had them recently, and hopefully we'll have a date with Haldane at some point as well. It's been a number of years since we've had them in for our curriculum presentation, so it gives us the ability to look at where we're sending our money and our students. So.
We had a normal board meeting after the joint session.
So the way they've done over there recently, and I haven't run one of these in a number of years. Actually, I think the last one I ran was virtual. We all stay for the whole meeting, and it's a regular board meeting. We will set the agenda, and they will be part of it. Whether they will choose to stay the whole time or not, we'll see. How many of them are also able to attend. I do recognize that for the other boards, it is, and administrators, but it is another night out for them. Families, it just makes it challenging, so.
It's looking like we'll have at least one board member from both of those two,
Wonderful.
and administrators.
Great. Yeah, students. So we just run our regular meeting, they sit at the table and join us. It's always been a wonderful experience when I've been invited over to O'Neill, sit at the table, really hear what they're doing. And I love watching other board meetings, so being at one in person is really fun. Anyway, that's my update. All right, I'm gonna go into executive session next. Be it resolved, the Board of Education of the Garrison Union Free School District hereby enters into executive session for the purpose of discussing the employment history of a particular corporation and receiving legal counsel. May I have a motion, please? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Nays? Abstention. We will adjourn executive session with no further action being taken. Thank you very much. Thank you for this testing.
Yeah, we find out, and then we'll shut down, yeah.
That's
We
fine.
find out now.
I didn't cause a problem.
No,
I
when we
don't
log back in, it's. Good night.